morning, everyone. We would like to welcome FedEx Cup leader and world number 2, Jon Rahm, to the Travelers Championship. Jon, welcome back, making your fourth start and first since 2020, so I'm sure things look a little bit different since COVID time. What's it like to be back?
It is a tournament I like. It's one of those events that gave me a start as an amateur. They have faith in me. So every time I can, I try to come back. I really get along with everybody involved with the organization of the event and the people in charge, and they've been really good to me and my family. So it's always a spot I try to make time for. It's just too bad that they got put in a tough time in the schedule for me after the U.S. Open the last few years. For the most part, I've gone to Europe and play Irish Opens or Spanish Opens and things like that. So that's why I haven't been as much as I would like, but looking forward to it. It's a great golf course. It's one that I always, if I'm not playing, I love watching on TV as well. And it's a fun one. One of those tournaments with a ton of history, rowdy crowd. It's definitely a tournament that, would be nice to win, especially being the last designated event of the year.
Already 4 wins this season and entering the week off of a top 10 at last week's U.S. Open. How are you feeling entering this week?
Feeling good, especially after the final round I had last week to sneak in there in the top 10. Like I said, I'm really looking forward to it. It's a tournament that I like and I've always enjoyed and I cherish. So hopefully I can have a strong showing like I know I can have and give myself a chance on Sunday.
Perfect. With that, we'll open up with some questions. If you have a question, raise your hand. We'll get a microphone over to you. We'll start off here in the front with Alex. We'll get a microphone, just 1 second.
Hey, Jon. Obviously, you played a designated event after the Masters. Now you're doing it again. I wonder, is it going to be easier or tougher to get going after, obviously you're coming off a win, the Masters now not a win. Is it going to be easier or more difficult to get going?
Way easier. Way easier. I was pretty drained on that Thursday still when I teed up at Harbor Town. And mainly because that week was unique in how demanding it was on the weekend with all these starts and stops and the tough weather, right? And every time you win, it takes out a little bit more out of you. For the better part of the weekend, I was never in contention. So all that stress and intensity that comes with it wasn't there. Even though I finished great, my round was done at 3 p.m. and I was able to enjoy most of the broadcast like everybody else and have plenty of time and not really have that extra energy spent on battling a Sunday afternoon at the Open. So energy-wise, I'm much better.
And directly next to Alex, we have Luke.
Hey, Jon. I was talking to Dave last week, and he was saying that you spend so much time practicing under competition, giving yourself little games to play, competition, drills, this kind of stuff. And I'm just wondering why that helps you, why that's good for your game.
Well, it's different for everybody. I don't find it personally very productive when I go and just do a drill or I have to be here until I finish this, make X amount of punch and make X amount of this and that, because I don't feel like I'm giving 100% all of the time, right? I think it was basketball coach John Wooden who said he always liked to have an exact amount of time to start to finish, so every player would give 100% instead of reserving energy. So a lot of those games that I have are timed. It could be 8 minutes, it could be 20 minutes, and if I don't get it done, I don't get it done, which is very similar to what we do in real life and pretty much in anything, right? You can try as hard as you want, but you won't always get the chance to succeed, and that's just golf. So it's easier to give it my all on a drill for 10 minutes and then change to the next one, right? Because if you do poorly, you kind of need to let it go and go to the next and try to accomplish that, right? So for me, it's not my entire practice, but I can do 2 or 3 games in this aspect of the game that in total is basically 1 to 2 hours. And sometimes I get it done in the first few minutes and it's done. Sometimes I don't get it done. But it's just a way for me to put 100% of my attention and focus on getting something done in that moment and have it spread out in different segments. But there's other when you're doing other type of work, sometimes you need the repetition, right? So it's not always 100% everything, just games like that.
Moving over to the right side, we have David.
Yeah, John, it's a little bit different coming to this designated event in that, you won, obviously, as you mentioned, the Masters, and then it's a pretty quick trip to South Carolina. This one involved cross-country flight. How do you physically and mentally try and get yourself prepared when you've got that kind of travel? What are the things that you do to recover, or things that in your experience, like, I don't want to do this when I'm in California before I fly over here?
Well, listen, each one's different, right? My main thing, if I have a long flight like that, it would be staying hydrated. Making sure I'm hydrated, because you can get dehydrated on a plane when you're there for 5 hours very, very quickly. So making sure I'm keeping up with that usually takes care of a lot, and then you're losing 3 hours as well, right? So making sure you get in your meals in so your body can recover after a week like that. So, I mean, it goes back to the basics, right? And then when you land, if you have time in the gym or whatever it may be, to get a little bit of exercise in. It doesn't need to be crazy. It could be 30, 40 minutes of just some kind of stretching or whatever it may be to get the blood flowing a little bit more, so your body can just naturally recover and get things moving. Because if you just sit for 5 hours and then you arrive here late, have dinner, and go to bed, I don't feel my best the next morning. So that would be the 3 things I would do. Nothing special, really.
How long did it take you to sort of understand or get into that? And when you started out as a professional out here on the PGA Tour, looking back 2015, 16, how different is the way that you would prepare now that way compared with what you did then?
Well, you learn a lot about yourself, right? In college, you don't travel nearly as much, and you don't travel nearly as far. The exercise part, I found that being very beneficial when I go across the Atlantic, when you go to Europe, when we go to Dubai, and flights like that. Landing and going straight to the gym, and actually, if it's mid-afternoon, trying to get a hard workout in, it was helped me by far the most to get over jet lag and things like that. It's like a reset to the body. So I try to apply the same thing when I come here.
Going back over to the left side, we have Nick, and then we'll go to Kira.
John, you had the memorial, then the drama of the big announcement and the U.S. Open, and now another designated event. Are you ready for a break?
Before all that, I already had a break after this week in my schedule. Just because, I feel like it's important to have that time off during the season. And earlier on, I either chose to play certain events or just didn't have the opportunity to do it. But yeah, even before all of that happened, I think it's something I had on my schedule. So I'm looking forward to it. Not because I need a mental break per se. It's just because I do need a bit of rest to then be able to attack the rest of the season, right? Because we still have plenty of golf to go, starting at the Open Championship. So not that what's happened really makes that much of a difference in that sense.
Any advice for the players that were in those final groups this past weekend for how to get ready to kind of answer the bell this week?
No idea. No. I mean, a lot of them are already plenty experienced, right? The only one that hasn't been in that situation was Wyndham. And then after winning, I'm pretty sure he really doesn't care how it goes this week. So I really couldn't tell you. It's so personal, but all I could tell him is to enjoy the win as much as possible. And, if you want to focus and play this week, go ahead. But just take the time to enjoy those moments, just because, they're not easy to come by. So to make sure you celebrate when something like that happens in the present instead of years after, when you've already, not forgotten, but it's already passed.
And Kira, go ahead.
John, what will be the lasting headline for you from the 2023 U.S. Open and your experience there?
For me personally?
Yeah.
Oh, God, I don't know. I'm not good at headlines. Nowadays, it's mainly clickbait, so I wouldn't know what to tell you. I don't know. The only thing I could say is the tournament is 72 holes, right? So don't give up. I was pretty far back on Sunday morning and then snuck my way into a top 10. So, play your hardest till the end, because in 10, 20 years when we looked into it and see, he had a top 10 in this U.S. Open, nobody's going to remember how you do it. So when it comes to that, that's what I was going to say. If it's as a tournament as a whole, I wouldn't know what to tell you. It's obviously a great major and obviously a very different one to what we've had in the past compared to previous U.S. Opens.
And just to follow up on what you said before about celebrating after you won the Masters, you told me that Rafa Nadal told you to take time to celebrate. I don't know that we got a full in-depth on how you did end up celebrating at Silverleaf.
And you won't. Yeah.
Okay, but have there been some special moments since then that
Yeah.
you can describe?
I don't think he meant having a party or doing anything like that. I think it's just reminding yourself to enjoy what you've accomplished, right? What he meant is, as competitors, you always want to focus on the next thing. And golf and tennis are similar because it's always the next tournament. So instead of just focusing on the next thing and forgetting what you've accomplished, to remember and reflect on what you've done and then be able to move on. I don't think he necessarily meant as a party or celebration. It's just more reflecting on what you've accomplished and to make sure that in the moment you're thinking about it before it's gone, right? That's what I understood from it, at least.
And moving back over to the right side.
John, this tournament has typically had a hard time when the U.S. Open is on the West Coast getting players to come back the next week to the East Coast. If this had not been a designated event, is this an event you would have skipped? And how much does what the Travelers does to make golfers feel comfortable, charter flights, that kind of thing, entice players to come all the way back?
Well, I mean, there's two events I wouldn't have played this season if it wasn't for the rules we've had this year, right? And that's the reason why I haven't played them in the past. Major weeks can be taxing, and I've always tried to set up my schedule around not playing those weeks. Now, I can't tell you what I would have done this year because it's a little bit different. I don't know if I would have gone to Europe or not. But that is, I mean, it is a tough one, right? Especially when you're going across the country completely. I can't tell you. I can tell you with certain confidence that I probably wouldn't have been here, even though I love the tournament so much. But even with that said, they've done a great job, like you said, of making players comfortable. Having a charter flight always makes it a lot easier. Maybe not for the best 2 or 3 players in the world, but for other people that are high-quality players as well who come and compete in this event. Yeah, they do everything they can. It's just sometimes, just if it doesn't fit the schedule, it doesn't fit the schedule, right? But in this case, I'm really glad that this year happened the way it happened so I can come back.
And we'll go ahead and go to Joe.
John, did you get any more answers to your questions about the merger? Have you heard anything more as far as what's going on? Do you feel any better than you did last week about what's going on with this merger?
I didn't really talk about it much last week, and I guess I might know more in a few hours once we're done with the player meeting tonight. I don't think we're going to get a lot of answers, but I'm going to at least get an idea of where the membership head's at. That's all I can say. We don't know anything. I don't even know if the people in charge know much more about it than we do. There's so many unanswered questions that at this point I wouldn't want to waste time thinking about it because there's a lot of what ifs and a lot of unknowns.
Unless we have any others, we'll finish up with Matt in the back.
John, going back to last week, LACC, pretty unique course. We've heard a lot of talk about it in the media over the past week. I'm just wondering, you've had success a lot of different places. What kind of golf do you like to play? What kind of course do you enjoy?
I enjoy all kind of golf, to be honest. I've spoken on why I play good in California many times. You know, a lot of similes to the greens I grew up back home, and a lot of the golf courses are similar as well. But I wouldn't be able to tell you one type of golf that I enjoy. I like it all. I can't really describe one. If I had to go down that route, even though I've won tournaments shooting low scores, I would rather go with tournaments that, you know, it's not a birdie fest completely, right? Where there's a challenge for everybody. Somewhere on that 10 to 14 under range, right? That's why I love Torrey so much. I mean, you can make birdies, but bogeys and double bogeys are lurking as well. So, leaning towards tougher conditions is where I would be happier. But I couldn't tell you exactly one type of golf course.
Going back over to David.
John, real quick, sort of off of that, is there a different sense of gratification that you get winning on a golf course where the scores are harder to come by than a course potentially like this, where we've had records low scores. I mean, there's been a 58 here, it seems, every year, 61, 62, that kind of thing. As a player, do you feel like there's almost a greater sense of accomplishment when you win on one type of those venues as opposed to the other?
I would say so, yes. Yeah. One of my most cherished wins is always going to be Memorial because of how difficult the golf course was. And when you go out there and perform like that and beat people on a very tough test, it's a lot more gratifying. Yeah. Just because, you're obviously battling the rest of the field, but you're also battling the golf course and yourself. When you go to Kapalua, you need to shoot 25 under to have a chance, right? So it's not really a fight against the golf course. It's not as intense. So yeah, I would say if you can, if I would ever to go to a tournament and win with over par score, I feel like that would be a really satisfying week. It doesn't happen often anymore, but I feel like that would be a really, really satisfying win. Cool.
Perfect. That is all the questions we have. Thanks for taking the time. Good luck this week, John.
Thank you.